Hey everybody, this is Spartan Robot Guy again, coming to you once again. Long weekend, got plenty of time to burn, so I've been playing games, and I've been looking around through some of my old games, and one of them caught my attention. I completely forgot I had this, but it's once again a game I played a lot as a kid, and I had a little time, so I decided to pick it up and play it again. I'm going to give you guys just a quick snippet of gameplay and give a few thoughts about it. And that game is Civil War, A Nation Divided. Apparently created in conjunction with the History Channel and developed by Activision. So is this game any good? Well, if you've never heard about it, well, let's just watch the video and find out. Alright, here we go, guys. Playing the Civil War video game for Xbox 360. This was also made for PS2, and I want to say the original Xbox, but I could be wrong on that. I played the PS2 version, and it's more or less the same game, just the graphics aren't as good. First things first, I really like this presentation. You definitely get that red, blue versus gray vibe, and it's definitely very evocative of that time period. So, I don't feel like offending anybody, so let's play for the North. Fredericksburg, relatively early in the war. Let's talk about that. We'll go normal. I don't feel like a masochist right now.
Christmas approaches, yet nothing could be
I
less
like
festive
the
than the dreary
intro.
weather towards the end of 1862.
In the battle.
Displeased with the inactivity of McClellan, Lincoln directs Union General Burnside to go on the offensive and attack Richmond.
We'll
Union
skip this, jump right into the game. Definitely getting a Call of Duty vibe out of this, an early Call of Duty vibe, where you're seeing like a soldier's journal, talking about the battle, you got some artifacts, you got a gun laying around. It reminds me very much of all things, the loading screen for Der Reich on the original World at War. But let's get gaming. Okay, so this was 2006, and it definitely looks like it. Not the worst graphics I've ever seen, but not gonna lie, it definitely looks better than the World at War I was just playing the other day, that's for sure. Ooh, explosion. Ooh, okay, what's next? Guy's missing it too.
Don't forget me. You can still fight. Move.
Okay, rousing speech there, General. Thank you. So first things first, the controls are a little wonky. I feel like this was before there was like a universal control scheme for a first-person shooter. So it takes a little getting used to. Let's see. Aiming isn't bad. The hit detection feels a little off, and this is where one of the big problems I see with the game comes in. It seems as if they couldn't decide if they wanted to make a historically accurate portrayal of the battles, or if they wanted to make a fun action. It feels like it's a weird hodgepodge of both. Like here, you're ducking behind cover, but you're still taking hits. That's very much something that would have happened, The weapons used were absolutely devastating. The projectiles were substantially larger, but they moved a lot slower, so they would do some absolutely devastating trauma to a human body. But I digress. So in that regard, it's definitely shooting for historical accuracy, where just because you're taking aim and shooting, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to connect with it. But at the same time, they're clearly trying to throw some scripted stuff in there with the explosions and the soldiers being killed, and I did that, I'm dead. Well, I don't have any saves, so let's just restart. But then they have this really cool loading screen, and they have, in terms of weapons and uniforms and character models, a lot of attention to detail. So it's somewhere in the middle. Like, it's as if they couldn't decide if they wanted to have a historically accurate narrative or if they wanted to just have a fun action game.
We hold that bridge, soldiers, or we won't be going home for Christmas. We'll be planted here till
And also, they wouldn't have been talking like that. Like, it seemed as if somebody read some historical letters and they tried to make the dialogue sound like Civil War dialogue. They would not have been chatting like that. It's a lot more vulgar and a lot more racist.
Don't forget me. You can still fight. Move.
It just feels a little too deliberate and a little too on the nose. And also, who on earth would ever hold a gun like this? Like, this is a joke. That's a joke. Like, it's a big, heavy revolver. These things didn't weigh 2 pounds. They were heavy guns. But then you have, like I said, the hit detection. The grenades have fins on them like they did. If ever you've been to the Civil War Museum in Barstow, Kentucky, they have several undetonated grenades, and they look exactly like that, for example. So which one is it? Did they want to create a historically accurate portrayal of one of the bloodiest wars in the history of mankind. They didn't want to make a fun action game. Like, there's really not much. It's somewhere in the middle. Oh yeah, at the time I punched somebody and they just fell over dead. Because apparently this dude you're playing as is the Hulk. Video game logic. I can't speak to specifics about the Battle of Fredericksburg. I know they were fighting over some bluffs in and around Fredericksburg, but I'm not sure if there was ever a heated battle over a bridge like this. I'm pretty sure these soldiers weren't just randomly running into each other either, but, well, yeah. Gotta say, I'm having a lot more fun with the revolver. Pretty dramatic firing animation though, like you just pull back the hammer with your thumb. Of course, you gotta have your sword. Gotta have some sword play. Ooh, that's good. Let's see. Yeah, not the great. The explosions aren't the greatest, but they don't look bad either. Like here, I'll show you something else. Another scripted moment. Like this feels like something out of an action game. Call of Duty-esque high octane. You shoot the rock, the wedge appears. Did it happen during the Civil War? I'm sure it did at some point. There were enough bullets flying in enough different places. I'm sure it happened somewhere. But it just feels a little ridiculous. I remember the time I, slapped somebody across the face in the front of their head. Were Gatling guns even in use at this point? Gatling guns didn't really come into widespread play until later on in the war. Like Fredericksburg was one of the earlier battles. And I'm dead again. Play just a little bit more. Don't have much choice but to restart. Not a bad game. It's a bit of an identity crisis. I feel like if they had tried to make the game as historically accurate as possible, it would have been very, very memorable. And I feel like if they had tried to make it into an interesting action game with a Civil War twist, it could have been just as memorable. But here it seems like they couldn't make up their mind, and it suffers for it because it's inconsistent.
We hold that bridge, soldiers, or we won't be going
like even just looking in the background there, you see the soldiers marching as they would have. You know, this was early enough in the war where guerrilla tactics weren't necessarily widespread yet. It's a great detail that the guy's missing a tooth, because one of the only requirements for Union soldiers was to have a certain number of teeth in their mouth so they could pull the wrappers for bullets out of their casing, or pull the wrappers for bullets off. So having that little detail in there is kind of cool. Let's try this one more time and see if I can actually survive getting across the bridge. Oh wow, I picked up a musket. I'm sure that's exactly what Union soldiers would do. They had these repeating firearms that were giving them a massive advantage, but I'm sure, in the heat of battle, while it's still loaded, they would just grab a dead rebel's musket off the ground and start shooting with it. Honestly, it was quite the opposite in the Civil War. Union had a major advantage with repeating firearms to the point where the rebels were consistently trying to steal and loot them. But is this a Let's Play or is this a history lesson? We'll call it both. I love the Civil War. Really fascinating stuff. I'm enjoying the bayonet thing too. That's something you don't see in a lot of games. I feel like you see it in there's one in Black Ops 2 where you get a bayonet, if I remember right. But no, this is... I'm not disliking the gameplay, I'm not gonna lie. It's certainly no masterpiece. Like, there were better games out at the time. This was 2006, so Call of Duty 2 was already on consoles, but... I mean, for what it is, it's a fun game. There's some really interesting historical details, there's really neat documentary style, and the moment-to-moment gameplay is engaging enough. And looking at the character models just coming off of the World Out port, these characters look diverse enough where they could stand to be their own army. There we go, took out the Gatling gun. Can I use it? Nice.
Kill them all!
First true automatic weapon to see use on an open battle. Ooh, cannon. Let's take out the cannons. Light up those bloody Stukas with the flak gun! Wait, wrong game. That's the original Call of Duty. Can I fire the cannons too? Let's find out. Got a couple of rebs up there on that there ridge. Oop, they're already dead. Looks like I can still fire though. Oh, there's another one. If I can blow into Kingdom Come. Reloading. Oh, it's not gonna do that. Okay, there's some more. Ooh, okay. Would not have been that cool though. If shell one off that close to you, you'd be missing bits and pieces of yourself, but I digress. I think you guys have seen enough to get the idea, so we'll call it quits there. Not gonna lie, I don't have much else to say about the game itself. Definitely an identity crisis. If they had decided to be either a historically accurate recreation of the Civil War, or if they had decided to be a cool action game with Civil War as a backdrop, like what they did with Battlefield 1, it would have been a lot better and it would have been a lot more memorable for it. But the lack of cohesive identity really suffers in the game's presentation and gameplay. The moment-to-moment gameplay is passable, especially for 2006, but by that point there were better shooters out there, so needless to say, it wasn't all that commercially successful. Still a fun game, though. Interesting idea. I love the Civil War aesthetic. It's something you don't see enough of. And that makes me wonder, why is it that there aren't more Civil War video games? You know, it certainly doesn't have the romanticism that we see with World War II or even World War I. And knowing enough about the Civil War, I could safely say that there's plenty that you can make games out of. You know, there's plenty of different sequences and dramatic moments that would be ripe for video game adaptation. So what is it about the Civil War that makes it so uncommon in the video game space? I feel like, at least here in the American market, it's a little too close to home. You know, World War I, World War II, these things happened on the other side of the world. They more or less didn't affect Americans and America itself, at least physically speaking. Whereas the American Civil War happened 100% on our soil. You know, where I live, I don't have to go too far to find a museum talking about how the Civil War affected my community, for example. So, I feel like it's just a little too close to home, and people are a little more leery about it. That, and given all of the recent controversy over Confederate imagery and its place in society and in culture, I feel like there's just too much controversy here in the States for it to be successful as a video game concept. There's certainly potential there, but I feel like it's just too sensitive of a topic. And I guess that's a good perspective on just how devastating the American Civil War was. It happened 160 years ago now when you think about it. The bombardment of Fort Sumter was in 1861. That was 161 years ago? Yeah. And it's still a little overly sensitive for people. But I digress. Fun game, a little inconsistent, but if ever you're at the Goodwill or you're at some retro game store or you happen upon it at a garage sale for a couple of bucks, pick it up and give it a shot. It just might pull you in, it might not. But I hope you guys enjoyed this quick exploration, another game from my childhood, another nostalgia bomb for me. And yeah, tell me what you think. Feel free to like, subscribe, and leave me some comments. Thanks, guys.